comfortable, and happy.
Great. And, after, we had learned about this, we think of our business as nutritionally based, whether it's equine nutrition to pet nutrition. And then, we also carry lawn and garden products. So fertilizers for the lawn and maintenance for, different nursery stock. And one thing that we've been looking to on the lawn and garden side is managing pH, obviously for different reasons and everything. Learning about Outlast kind of got us back to, no matter everything we're doing is nutrition-based and the importance of pH, whether it's nutrition for the lawn. And then obviously this is a pretty critical thing for horses. And so that was one thing, we took away that, really all together, our slogan, where the home grows, everything living in and around your home. This was, something that kind of reminded us of like what our core mission is and better nutrition for everybody. So I think the Outlast product and the demonstrations and I think it was Dr. Jacobson who took us through the development of Outlast and even showed us live how it worked and changed the pH of an acid-based liquid he had right in front of us. That was pretty amazing. So
yeah, and the research, I would tell you the research in horses, we talked earlier about, species-specific research, and I'm sure some of your listeners will have said, I've got an ulcer. As a human, I've had ulcers, or I know people who've had ulcers, and in humans, there's a lot of ulcers apparently that are caused by a bacteria, whereas in horses, that doesn't seem to be the case. And while the stomach is designed to be acidic on purpose, it's supposed to be acidic to start the process of digestion. Things like stress, exercise, lots of things can actually increase the acid level in that horse's stomach. And if you think about the way a horse evolved as a animal that was out grazing, eating small meals through the day versus a human who's a meal eater, when you eat a meal as a human, you produce acid to help digest that meal. And when you're not eating a meal, that acid production backs off. In a horse, they continuously secrete acid because they're supposed to be continuously eating. So when you have these horses that are meal fed and then they go several hours without eating and in some cases without drinking, the acid's just building up in that stomach. And the way their stomach is designed and it sits in their body, the acids, it's about the lower third, and a lot of the gastric ulceration occurs in the upper 2/3 of their stomach. And where that happens is that acid sits there and increases, and then you go ride that horse or put them in a trailer or do anything activity-wise with them, that acid, the stomach will compress a little bit due to pressure, and that acid will splash around. And so you begin to erode the protective lining of the stomach, and it can be unbelievably painful for a horse. And, horse owners will all realize, if you've been around very many different horses, you see that horses all react to pain differently. It depends on the amount of pain, and it depends on that horse's reaction to pain. But some horses get really stoic and really, they tough it out. And then other horses, they just can't take it. They get really nervous. They get anxious. So you begin to see behavior things in horses who have this discomfort going on in their stomach. And if we can do things like when you supplement with Outlast, one of the earliest things we'll see, or what people will tell us, is that the horse is relaxed, he's more calm, they're just more content and less nervous, things like that. So I think it would be, you all have there at the store, we have the Purina Equine Gastric Health Program brochure. And I would just encourage all the horse owners to come to the store, look through that brochure, because we have a list of common symptoms. So what to look for in your horse to decide, does my horse maybe have some gastric issues? And then we also look at risk factors. And it's amazing to some horse owners what some of those risk factors are, because I'll hear people say, well, I don't compete a lot, so my horse isn't at risk. But there's a lot of things. One of the things that people get a little bit of a chuckle out of is one of the things that's been identified as a risk factor is playing talk radio in the barn. I think as humans, we can all relate to that. But there's a lot of different things that stress horses out. And as they get stressed, and especially if they go periods of time without something in their stomach, they have a risk of developing these gastric issues. And it's not just in performance horses, although there's research studies that say up to 90% of performance horses can experience gastric discomfort. You also find it in broodmares and foals, old horses, pasture ornaments sometimes. So our goal with that brochure is to help educate horse owners about the issues and to help them recognize the symptoms, recognize the risk factors, and then really encourage horse owners, if they think that their horses may be experiencing some of these symptoms, it's really important to get your veterinarian involved for a proper diagnosis, because some of the symptoms are not what we would call specific to gastric issues. They're indicative, but they're not necessarily just specific for that. So a horse that's nervous or a picky eater or is beginning to lose body condition, maybe they've got a little bit of recurrent light colic. All those kind of things are certainly symptoms of some kind of gastric discomfort, but they could also be other things. So we really want horse owners to get their veterinarian involved, properly diagnose the horse. If they do have gastric ulcers, they definitely need to work with their veterinarian for medical treatment of those ulcers, but then to have them include Outlast gastric support supplement as part of the support of that treatment, and then hopefully to continue on it and use it as a way to help reduce the risk of recurrence.
I mean, it's such a key product, and it's probably why it's such a big innovation overall, is because it's so prevalent, coming from both environmental and dietary related issues.
That's true, Terry. And I tell you, for us, nutrition always is impactful in the health and well-being of the horse, but sometimes it's hard to see. So, for instance, if a horse is copper deficient, they don't show you anything today. It's just it takes time, and it has to be severe deficiencies, and it's bad for their diet to be deficient in a trace mineral, but you don't always see it immediately. Some of it you just have to go on faith that the nutritionists know what they're talking about and say this is important for your horse, because it's not like they'll all go lame tomorrow because they have a calcium deficiency or something like that. But with Outlast, it's just really one of those unique times where the nutrition impacts that horse extremely quickly, and it's very evident. And Outlast is just real easy to feed. You can top dress it on any feed that you feed. We recommend you feed it as a snack, and most horses will eat it by itself as a standalone snack. So if it's been more than a couple of hours since the horse ate a meal and you're going to exercise them, train them, put them in a trailer and haul them, we recommend that they get Outlast. We have a lot of veterinarians that are now sending horses home from veterinary clinics. If they come in for treatment of anything, they give them Outlast, just because going to the vet, going to the treatment, all those are stressors. And so it's really simple, it's very cost effective, and it's really easy to use, and you can see results really quickly in most horses if they are having, this acidity issue. So it's kind of a unique product for us in that it's pretty evident pretty quickly that it's working. And because of the number of horses that are affected by this issue, as you mentioned earlier, we have expanded with Outlast, and it is available in a supplement, but then we've also included it in several products like Ultium Gastric Care, Strategy GX, Strategy Healthy Edge, and now our Impact Professional Performance. We've actually built in the Outlast ingredients so that every meal those horses get that gastric support. And for me personally, I guess I can tell you a little personal story of why that's important to me, is that when we were doing some of the field work on Outlast, some of us tested it on our own horses as well as finding other people around to test it. So I had Outlast test product in my barn for my horse, and I had a barrel horse, and he's a little bit nervous, as some barrel horses can be, and I was really frustrated with him because he was a little bit difficult at sometimes to ride. And I started him on Outlast, and don't make any mistake, it didn't turn him into a kid's pony, but it just made him a more relaxed, happier version of himself. And so I was feeding him Outlast, and I had enough Outlast in my barn to last him for 3 months. And as I do, I travel a lot with my job, so I would ride in spurts, and then I would be gone for a while. And so I was riding, and I was happy with my horse, and then I had to travel. And so I was gone, and I didn't ride probably for a month, maybe it's a little longer. And I came home, and I started riding my horse again, and he was back to being his original frustrating loon. And so I thought, well, maybe he's just fresh. And so I started riding him. I rode him for 2 or 3 days in a row, and no, he was still just kind of anxious and super reactive, and just, he was still trained. He wasn't, but he's just difficult, like some horses can get. And so I noticed when I put him up one evening in the barn and they had already put the feed in his stall, I noticed there was no Outlast in his feed. And I went to the guys who fed and where's his supplement? And they said they ran out. And there was no way they could have ran out. I had exactly the amount left. So I asked again, where's the supplement? And they said, well, Mr. James, my husband, had put 2 of his mares on it because he had seen what it did in my horse. So for me, I go, if it's built into the feed, we can't run out of the supplement. So I know whether I'm there or not, he's going to get Outlast with every meal. And then while I'm here, if it's been more than a couple of hours since he ate, I still give him an Outlast snack. And I can tell when I ride him today whether he got Outlast today. He's that sensitive. Some horses you wouldn't be able to see it quite that clearly, but he's that sensitive. And he does not have gastric ulcers. When that acidity builds up, I think even before it maybe damages the stomach, and some horses, they can feel it and they get anxious and a little bit nervous. So that's one of the reasons we've put it in the feed, is because it does affect such a wide number of horses, and it is helpful in those horses to put it in their meals so that they get it every day. Great.
And you mentioned, everything from Ultium, Strategy, the different lines that Purina has. So if we're, looking for something that has either Outlast in it or just, a horse feed overall, how do we kind of understand or break down, the different categories that fall underneath the Purina line?
Sure. Well, one of the easy ways of a horse owner is to go into a really good independent Purina dealer like yourselves and just ask you for some help, because as you all invested your time to come to the research farm, our dealers are good about investing their time in being trained and understanding our products and understanding what horses and horse owners need. So that would be your first place to go, would be just go in your good local Purina dealer and ask for some help. The other things we have available is you can go on our website at purinamills.com, and you click on the horse, and you can look at the products. All the information on the products are there. There's a lot of products, as you mentioned, so sometimes you go, that's kind of overwhelming. That's a lot of different products. And so we have some tools on our website. We have a feed recommender, and we have a feed calculator. And you can answer a few questions like, what type of horse do you have? Do you have good quality hay? It works through some questions. So if you click on, I have a senior horse, it will narrow down the product offering to which products would be best appropriate for that horse. And then you can go to the feed calculator and you can actually plug in how much your horse weighs and what you do with him. And it'll give you a recommendation of this is, on an average horse weighing this amount, doing what you do with them, this would be about what you would feed of these different feeds. So there are some tools on the website, and then there's additional support articles and information that help educate horse owners to work through the different scenarios and different types of horses and what they may be best, which product may best fit them.
Great. And we'll also put those in the show notes so people listening can go ahead and check there if they missed that, and they'll all be linked in there. But, what was even cool about our trip is that Purina Mills is a company, and making sure that the customer can go in and find the right feed for their horses. It's something you guys practice as an organization. The first night we actually went and met with the Budweiser Clydesdale team, and they talked about how about, I think it was 5 years ago, they started working with Purina after, doing a ton of investigation and, analysis, went with a Purina feed plan to help their show teams or hitches that, the 3 teams